How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome back to episode 23 now, I believe. It was 22 on the last one, hopefully, if I'm able to count correctly. And we just finished killing Tugahama, and I explained some of prophecies and all that sort of, weird, pointless-ish in a way, but I need to not say pointless because comments will chew me out system. And yeah, we made our way through the first, I guess, third of Act 6 so far. So far I haven't really had any issues, didn't really die. I planned around my resists and, the problems this act was going to give me. So we did rather okay in that regard. I have a skill point available after that boss fight. I did put the other one into the resists here. That's probably not going to stay forever, but for the moment it's going to be alright. I do need to go up and get this point, I think. Or alternatively, come down. There's a few ways I need to do this, honestly. I kind of pathed this fucking poorly, if I'm going to be honest with you. I could do this a lot better. What I should really do is I should spend a few points optimizing my pathing. Because what I should do, realistically, is go 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect me down here. And I can cut this, this, and I can keep these because it'll cut down. And then I can go up here, get that, come down here, get that. And then I spend those 4 going 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of the points here. Reason being is that this node is actually very, very important. Because what it ends up doing is per endurance charge, we have 4 of them, we get 0.2% max life regen per charge. Now remember how I said you can go up to, 10, 11 charges? 10 times 0.2 is like, what, an additional 2% life regen? Like max life regen? That sounds very, very small, but say 2% of your 10k, that's 200 life a second, right? I think that's the math, I don't know. Some fucking shit like that. I don't know if it's 200% or 200 life. I think I overshot that massively. But still, you see what I mean, right? Extra life regen is always good in these sorts of builds. But I think the next thing I'm going to go for, outside of Golem's Blood here, I need this charge, I need Golem's Blood, I need to get into this life, what else? That and Retribution wouldn't be a bad idea. One thing that I actually want to cover in this, in the survival guide, or in this now, is actually this node right here, this node cluster. This is gonna get very, very odd very quickly. Essentially, this is a minion cluster of nodes. Now, the reason that I want to cover this is because what I learned recently is the true power of this node right here, of Spiritual Aid. Now, it's gonna be a really weird concept to say this, but essentially, I realized that taking minion nodes on a fully melee damage build right now is not a bad idea. Now, let me explain that for those of us who kind of hear that and go, what the fuck, are you on crack? Well, essentially what this does is Spiritual Aid makes it so that minion damage increases also affect you. So, minions deal increased damage affects you. And there is 12, 24, 42, 52, 67% minion damage right there on the way to Spiritual Aid. And this is actually, if you're up here, a very effective 5 points for damage. You wouldn't think so, and it sounds really fucking weird, but that's actually a very effective 5 points of damage. Another few points that are effective is actually, once you get the Retribution, to go back into Templar start. Which is also really fucking weird, because this has not only attack damage that affects you, but minion damage as well on all 3 of these. So you're doubling down on this damage effectiveness, right? And then 12% increased damage, and then 14% increased damage. It's actually like a damage increase. So if we look at what I have here, this is my War Chief Berserker that I'm working on currently. You can see that if I were to unallocate these nodes, look at I'm gonna point to it IRL and it's not gonna work. But look like down here, it'll say an unallocating point thing. Unallocating this node and all nodes depending on it will actually drop 50k DPS off my Berserker build. And this build so far, this is my current iteration of said character, is looking at roughly 1 million damage. So because I'm running 3 totems, this effectively is worth 150k DPS. Now, the reason why this node is also so effective is because there's a helmet type you can get on top of this. I don't know why I kind of went into this spiel, but we're gonna go for it whole hog. There's a helmet type you can get starting a little later on in the game that gives you 40% minion damage as an implicit on it. If I can find helmet, I believe it's, I don't remember exactly what it is. I think it's armor energy shield, bone helmet. There it is. Minions deal 30 to 40% increased extra damage. This is a thing that will, of course, increase your damage just baseline. But even more so, it also means that you can roll it, right? Because this is a helmet that's not unique or anything like that. So you can roll it however you want to. You can get, you know, max life, you can get resist, you can get all this sort of shit, while still retaining a massive damage increase. Because, you know, 57% was already, what, 50k DPS? And another 40% on top of that is, like, surprisingly stupid. Surprisingly fucking stupid. For a minion damage, or for minion damage on, like, a pure melee build, it's definitely an odd one. So that's, I don't know why or how I really got here, but I can kind of use that as a showcase of Path of Exile's many kind of weird build paths that you eventually diverge into. Now, right now, of course, we're playing a sort of standard, generic, like, you know, melee damage, big man, big hammer, big smashes type of build, right? But Path of Exile, a lot of its longevity comes from what would normally in other games be called hipster builds. And that's to just think of something really fucking weird and go whole hog into it and make it work. That's where, for me, a lot of longevity has come from in Path of Exile, alongside just trying to learn its basic mechanics sometimes. Because there's a lot of things that, like, are kind of difficult to understand, like poison, for example. Poison and chaos damage are oddly difficult to understand. Because what ends up happening is poison you look at and you just think, okay, well, yeah, I know what that is from other games, right? But then you see chaos damage, and you're like, okay, are poison and chaos damage the same thing? I would assume so, right? They both seem kind of like, you know, damage over time, tick things. And the answer to that question is yes and no, right? This is where Path of Exile starts to diverge into weirder scenarios. I don't know how I got here, but we're going to fill the air while we fucking clear through the next areas anyways. It's just going to kind of be a straight shot until we get to Chavron, which is all lightning damage, like I said. So we go fire damage with cold damage, and then lightning damage boss is second, then third boss, which is Brine King, and the end of the act is all cold damage, and we'll fucking eradicate you. So yeah, there's the resists trifecta coming into effect yet again. But what I was saying about, what was it, about chaos damage and stuff, was that after having to look into this for a build I was playing, I eventually figured out that they're not the same at all. Well, they are, but they aren't. Oh no, corrupted blood. Oh shit, that's a problem. I'll cover that in a second. I want to finish this thought first. Essentially, chaos damage is its own, like, entity. You can buff chaos damage however you want to, and that sort of stuff. Get percent increased chaos, it's buffed by damage over time, and that sort of stuff. I was playing Caustic Arrow at the time, so this skill did base chaos damage, right? I'm trying to explain this, you know, as kind of as simply as possible so you can follow along with me. Hopefully I'm doing that. And I hope by this point, some of these things that I'm talking about and some of these concepts I'm talking about, you're able to follow along with me. And it's not like the first time I explained, you know, percent life versus, like, max life or whatever, and everyone was sat there like, hold on. Hopefully you're able to be at least partially with me on some of these kind of more adept things that I'm talking about, make at least a mild sense to you. I hope that I've instilled that this far. So essentially, the skill that I was playing had a base chaos damage dot. So I was able to increase that with damage over time effects, and with percent increased chaos damage. Now, I also had a chess piece that had, it was a unique chess piece, that gave me 100% increased poison damage. So I was like, okay, it's kind of what sparked me creating that character, because I thought chaos damage and poison damage were the same thing. So I was like, okay, this is going to boost my damage fucking massively, it's going to be really good. And after vigorous hours of research for this character, I actually ended up with path of building on one monitor and path of building on the other monitor to figure out why one was doing a lot more damage than the other one. I ended up figuring out that poison is, yes, it factors into chaos damage, but it's completely different. The biggest thing about Caustic Arrow that I was playing at the time is that it does a very, very small amount of physical damage, but where the big damage comes from is the pool that it creates underneath enemies that deals chaos damage, right? So it does very little phys damage, but major chaos damage, right? So you're following along. Now, I looked into poison to try and figure out what it was. I looked into it on the wiki to try and figure out how poison worked. And it's a bit weird to explain. So essentially, poison is a damage over time effect that is a culmination of 20% of the initial hit, right? But it's going to get even more interesting, because your poison dot is a stacking culmination of 10% of the initial physical damage hit and 10% of the initial chaos damage hit. Okay? Are you with me? Are you with me here? Now, that essentially means that due to the build the skill I was playing, poison was fucking terrible, because it didn't do a chaos damage hit, right? Because it did the chaos damage pool underneath it that counted as damage over time. In Path of Exile, damage over times don't count as hits at all, which is useful because then you know you can use Elemental Overload and other sorts of things like that to kind of trick the game, or Elemental Equilibrium, sorry. These are a little more advanced concepts, but it doesn't count as an actual hit at all if it's a damage over time pool underneath the enemies. So poison is essentially 20% of my physical damage initial hit, which was doing like 100 damage because it wasn't scaling physical damage at all. I was scaling the pool. So I then ended up learning that poison is essentially trash and kind of wasted. These are the sorts of things that increase longevity in Path of Exile. Now, that's not even a hipster build, because Caustic Arrow is very good and very, very effective. But you see the types of things and the types of, what is it? How do I say this correctly? The types of lengths I went to figure out why certain build was working the way it is, or wasn't working the way it is, you know? And that's where you get the extra longevity of PoE. Yes, I'm playing a very consistent build right now, and yes, Caustic Arrow was was like a very effective, very basic skill in compared to some of the other stuff that you get in Path of Exile and some of the more complicated shit. Caustic Arrow and the poison explanation I just did is very simple. Yeah, it's compared to some of the other stuff I've played, it's extremely, extremely simple. Just trying to figure out fizz damage alone is probably about 300 to 400 of my hours. To figure out how fizz damage abilities and like skills scale is probably 200 to 300 hours worth of my time. I'm not kidding. Be happy I'm the one who did it so I can explain it to you in about like 1.5. But that's where a lot of the longevity comes from in PoE, in my opinion, is all of these massive options. Because since there's so many skills and so many different things to play, you always have a way to come back with something new, right? Every single time. Because there's no way in hell that you're going to go through playing every single skill gem in Path of Exile. I started a series based around that, and I'm like, what, 5 or 6 episodes deep? There is no way in hell I ever, like, get to that point where I actually finish it. I think I'm like 7 episodes or something deep in that. There's no way I ever finish it because each league, they also add like 2 to 3 new active skills. So every few months you are getting new skills or skill reworks or that sort of stuff. And so there's never a way to play every single skill gem. So you can always come back and make something new, right? But now I'm going to tie this into a different thing. Is that people always ask me, you know, what do I play? Or what should I play, right? Now, the answer I'm going to give you to this question is going to be based on the way that I play this game, okay? That needs to be said because I play solo self-found, right? Solo self-found means I don't have the ability to trade with anyone, as you know, see me playing. It's basically how we're playing right now. is I play off of the drops that the game gives me. I can, you know, try my best to force certain things, but ultimately, if RNG is not going to give me the one item that makes my build work, then my build's not going to fucking work, right? Now, people play Trade League and do all this other sort of stuff where you can just buy gear, and that's fine. This sort of advice is going to be a lot more kind of like stretched if you're in that sort of scenario. You know, it's not going to make as much sense to you. But what I always say is that if someone comes into my stream and asks, you know, what do I play? I then ask them, like, okay, do you want me to give you, like, what's meta right now? Or do you want, like, you know, something just interesting and new, right? Because if you want something that's meta right now, or just meta in the first place, there's a few very basic ones that you can stick with that will always do you well, right? Like Arc, Blade Vortex, Tornado Shot, what else? It's probably an Earthquake build for, like, if you want to play melee. Reeve is always good. I mean, well, yeah, Reeve's pretty much always good. Even though melee got nerfed heavily because of stat stick changes and stuff like that. Which I explained, and then the next episode they were removed completely. So that was fun. But yeah, like, there's always good, effective meta skills that will destroy the screen in about 3 clicks and are really hard to fuck up building. Like, if you want to go for something like that, then that's fine. But if you want to kind of play off of... How do I say this correctly? Play off the land. We'll call it that. This is the sort of thing that I absolutely adore doing. Which is, what does the game give me? I love this sort of concept in action RPGs or just in any game like this in general, the space round, like loot or that sort of thing. Which is going in, seeing what the game gives me, and then adapting my playstyle around that sort of thing. It's half the reason that I wanted Infinite Delve to become a thing. Because what I could do is, in that sort of scenario, is I could go in, just start my delving, start with a character at level 1, and make something as consistent as possible. And then, you know, I can't trade, I can't buy from vendors, I can't do anything. It's literally like I go in, see what the game gives me, and then go from there. Literally, the game would decide all my skill gems and all that sort of stuff. But that dream is, like, well dead because Path of Exile doesn't want that to exist. Alright, we'll get back to this thought real quick. Chevron, essentially, she has 2 phases. The first one, Brutus comes out. He does that. He jumps around. Lightning damage books. They do like a storm call type AoE effect. Avoid those. Just kind of tank down Brutus. He will hurt a little bit. If you're playing a squishy character, he can one-shot you. Avoid these. Avoid the shit on the ground that Brutus will do. He'll do his strikes. You can't actually stand behind him. He'll turn around. You can stun him. You know, you can stun every boss in the game. It's rather easy to do. She'll affect him with this lightning thing. I still have no idea what the fuck it does, because I normally just tank him through it, or kill him instantly. You can avoid those normally by stepping to the side of him. This boss is kind of like visual aids, if I'm honest with you. But you can avoid most of his slams by just like stepping to the side. It's very easy to do. The reason that's important to work on is that when he goes into his second phase, he's going to fuck you up heavily. Once you get Brutus down, you're going to get a phase like this, and then Shav is going to come out. She's going to do lightning balls to do some damage. Every now and then she's going to go up in the air. She's going to summon these Tomes of Thunder as well, which if you don't have capped lightning res are going to do a lot of damage, and cast arc and chain around and do that sort of stuff. They do a lot of damage. There's her up in the air. You can avoid all of this, just kind of run around. You can't hit her during that phase. She's fully invincible. Mildly annoying, even to like dots and bleeds and stuff. But through this phase, you can kind of tank through it. Try and stay away from those books. Move out of that, you know, if you're not playing multi-strike and you're not very chunky. Move out of that normally. But, you know, you can outrange these tomes. If she puts them in a bad place, then they don't do any damage to you, so that's good. She regens her energy shield every time she goes up, so I'm probably just going to resort to just tanking her. Because, you know, I have the health to do so on this character. That being said, because she goes up and regens her energy shield, on lower DPS builds, you're going to have a bad time whenever that happens. After you get her low, she's going to infuse with Brutus, and this is going to be big bad phase. You know, avoid those. They hurt. On squishy characters, they hurt heavily. But, you know, we're very chunky at this point, so we're not really that worried. Tanking all 3 of those is doable, it's whatever. In this case, I can kind of just tank through him with my War Chief up, and don't really care. At point blank like this, you can just kite around him like so. If you're playing a ranged character, the way to deal with this boss in this phase is if you just kind of kite him. I'll try and show you in this sort of scenario. If you just like dip in and out of his melee range, you'll notice he'll go for the attack animation, right? But it'll miss completely. See? See what I'm kind of doing there? Because of that, what you can do if you're playing a ranged type of character, or a character with very fast attack speed, is you dip in, and as he goes for his attack animation, you back up, and then shoot like 1 or 2 times. Depends on how fast your attack speed is, how fast your cast speed is. But because you can see he'll dip in, and you can dip in his attack, or he'll do his attack, but it'll miss horribly. That's how you get through this boss on ranged characters without getting 1 to 3 hit, because, you know, on ranged characters who are very squishy, he'll do chunks to you if you get smacked by him. So, as I said, you know, good character control will obviously help you. Those who aren't of the good character control alley, you know, then, you know, big tanky man is here for a reason. But I know some people are listening for the information, not for the build or for the character, so I want to try and give as much widespread information as possible. And in that scenario, that is something that I think would help. So do I get a Pantheon from you? I don't really remember. I don't pay attention to this. Nope. Alright, and we're gonna head down, and we're gonna head out of here, get this crafting recipe, because we're here. Get every crafting recipe you come across at this point, you know. There's no reason not to. And then we out. We are out. We're in Prisoner's Gate, and we're on our way to Brine King. Here, there's going to be... This is where we get some side bosses. Now, depending on your gear and how tanky you are, these ones I may recommend doing later, because they will probably fuck you up. Aberath is in this area. He's a dude that does a lot of fire damage. If you don't have good fire res, don't fuck with this boss, because he will kill you fast. Next area is a poison-based boss, or like a chaos damage-based boss. Decent life regeneration will make that boss less of a problem. Or like just being able to one-shot it very quickly. But otherwise, that boss is pretty manageable. But Aberath in this scenario is kind of hard to deal with if you don't have good resists. I think this character should be okay. I mean, multi-strike is probably going to fuck me over a little. But it should be alright. I believe in myself. I believe in this character. It's quite nice to be able to believe in, you know, the tankiness of a character. And not have to sit there and go, you know, can I do this? Just going, yeah, I could probably do it unless I fuck up. It's quite nice. What the fuck was I saying? What was I saying? It was something about hipster builds and that sort of scenario. And about... Oh, right, no, I remember. I remember where I was. I like playing off the lay of the land. So much so that I've started doing a Torchlight 2 playthrough that essentially has a mod that gives me an endless dungeon. And essentially all I do is I create a character, enter the portal, and then just go until I die. I play it on max difficulty, on hardcore. So if my character dies, my character is dead and gone. And I just go as deep as possible with whatever the game gives me. I mean, yeah, the character has like a base set of skills and, you know, that sort of stuff. It's not like Path of Exile, where the game can determine what skills I legitimately get. You know, depending on class, I do get stuff, right? But because of that, it creates a sort of living off the land type of playstyle. In this case, it's for, you know, potions, scrolls, the whole 9 yards. But in PoE, for creating a consistent build, you can still kind of do a off the land type of playstyle. In my scenario, in my solo self-found Betrayal League that I'm playing right now, I'll bring up this character that I was showing you before in this episode previously. All of this gear that I have right here was all dropped for me very, very early on. And I played through many different builds. I played through my Caustic Arrow Ranger, as I was saying, my very weird, does poison work, how does it work type of character. And, you know, I made that character decent from the ground up with nothing outside of a tabula. While I was playing that character, all of this shit dropped. Well, most of this shit dropped. Primarily, phase breakers dropped on that ranger, which are something that are exceptional for a war chief build. Now, it took me until the end of the month to realize, or until the final month of the league, to realize that the game gave me face breakers, right? The game gave me face breakers, the game gave me Comb's Heart. I should be playing a build based around one of these two, right? Because I have the items, right? The game gave it to me. It's completely through RNG. It gave me the exact things I want to play certain builds. Now, this is going to get a lot harder to kind of discern, you know, based on experience, right? You could, I mean, I only have 1,000 hours. That's really nothing in PoE. That being said, I know kind of basics, or I can have a grand spectrum of things and thoughts-wise. So say I get a drill neck or something, right? I know what that kind of works with. I know it works with Caustic Arrow because the ailment bonus on it will affect Caustic Arrow damage. So say I get something like that to drop, then I start thinking, okay, well, what can I use this for in a build? Especially if it's some kind of build-enabling unique or some big weapon type of thing. The biggest explanation or thought I can give you is, say you're playing through a character it's okay, but it's not giving you anything spectacular, and your run's been fine, and you get a Kondo's Pride drop, or a Tukahama's Fortress, or something like that. And what those are is Tukahama's Fortress is a shield that gives you +1 totems and 40% totem damage, as well as giving you blood magic. Kondo's Pride is a two-handed sword that does massive amounts of bleed damage, or increases your bleed damage massively. So now, because of those two drops, say you're playing a character that didn't have anything going for it, and it was just kind of lazily struggling through maps. If you ask me, what do I play, and you want something interesting or intriguing or that sort of thing, what I'm always going to say is look at your stash, look at what you've got, right? And if you were to tell me I have a Tuko's Fortress and a Kondo's Pride, what do I play? Well, my two options for you would be, one, War Chief Totems, right? Yeah, you don't have Face Breakers, but you have a Tukahama's Fortress. I randomly dropped a 300 DPS, or a 300 damage mace yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that. So, Tuko's Fortress in one hand, big, beefy mace in the other hand, and just let your War Chiefs just go to fucking town, right? There's a build just right there, just in that one item. Kondo's Pride is a very good bleed weapon. Create a Lacerate Duelist or whatever that has like bleed bonuses and go all the way down into the bleed tree. Like, here, I'll come down and even show you, right? I'll show you physically, like, which one has bleed. It's this one. This one even has two-handed bonuses, right? You get two-handed damage and life leech as well as bleed. Where's the bleed stuff? I don't really remember. Is it this one? I don't know if it's this one. It could be. Okay, this is the bleed one. This is the bleed tree. This is two-handed damage tree. So you have two options, right? But you're playing a bleed two-hander, so you can go either. That's got block damage. I'd probably go this side. But you see what I mean, right? Duelist has bleed nodes even. There's like fucking bleed stuff here. Damage while leeching. You got life leech. Go for this one for leech. You're leeching off the bleeds, right? You can see what I mean. This is just off of one item, right? One shield, one two-handed weapon unique, or these sorts of things. Like, there's so many options in PoE, and the biggest thing is always, like, figuring out what option the game gave you, if that makes sense. But that's where I derive enjoyment from PoE, is being able to do that play off the land type of play style. Which is, I start with something consistent, see what I'm given, and then just kind of roll with it from there. And that is one of my favorite things about PoE, because there's so many options, right? Even just that Tukahama's Fortress, you can take that multiple different ways. You don't have to play a War Chief. I may die to Aberath here. This is why I'm saying, like, be very careful. Because even though this character is very chunky, this boss is still a massive pain. You have to play kind of consistent. Kind of closeted and consistent here. But yeah, he will disappear. Hopefully quickly. Hopefully at some point quickly, because I'm running out of flasks. But yeah, you just kind of start with a build that's rather consistent, and then play until you get something cool. And then when you get something cool, or something relatively of note, then you can kind of build and plan around that. And that's where you can get so much longevity out of PoE. I still don't know how I got to this topic, but it's a topic I wanted to talk about, I think. But I'm glad I did talk about it. Because it's a question I get quite often, is just, you know, what do I play? I don't know, can you give me an idea? And I'm just like, well, check what you've got, right? Now, obviously, If you're in a trade league where you can buy literally anything at your disposal, that answer is not gonna really work for you. In that case, look at like a unique, or look at a weapon, or think of a play style or a class you want to play or some shit, and then just start, you know, letting the ideas roll, right? Just think like, okay, I want to play Ranger. All right, sure, that's whatever. What type of Ranger do you want to play? You want to play Ice Shot, or you want to play Ice Ranger, Lightning Ranger, Bleed Ranger? Like, what are you looking for? Okay, I want to play Lightning Ranger. Okay, Shrapnel Shot. Sure, Shrapnel Shot has like explosions. That's not bad. What could I combo with that? It's got Threshold Jewels. That's not bad. You want to be relatively close for point blank bonuses. I mean, you can get extra damage there for the explosions and stuff. You can probably run a Blasphemy Curse in there because you're close range. So you're in curse range. Okay, what works with close range? There's Chin Soul, which gives you increased damage depending how close you are to the enemies. Chin Soul's a bow. Okay, what quivers are an option? We're not doing ailments, so Drill Neck's not really the best. I don't really know much in the Ranger's quiver area. I don't know why I went here for the showcase. I don't play that much Ranger. Let's see, I could probably craft a quiver. We're not going crit, so I could craft a, what is it? I could craft like a Fizz to Attacks quiver, because that'll probably be useful. Because we're going to go for full conversion, because the spell itself has, what was it for Shrapnel Shot? 50 or 60% base lightning conversion, or Fizz to Lightning. So Fizz to Attacks is useful, because it gets converted to lightning damage. So we want percent lightning damage items, we want some lightning damage gimmicks. Hail of Thunder could work. Hail of Thunder could even apply your curse, because you're going to be shocking. Maybe get some shock percent. Go to the top of Witch for lightning damage. You see where I'm going, right? This is one idea. Yeah, I have the pseudo experience, I guess, to be able to know how to put all of this together, right? Because a lot of people, they might think of something, but they might not have the ability to formulate it into something that works, or just something in general, you know? They might have the idea of, oh, this sounds cool, and then they don't have the experience to figure out how to translate that into something that they want to play, or that is even playable. Now, what do I just desynced very heavily. What do I say about that scenario? Play more. It's really it. Just keep playing, keep at it. Because eventually you'll learn, right? I don't know. Did I go the wrong fucking way? Am I retarded? I might be. I might be entirely retarded. It's probably up here. The biggest thing I have to say is just keep playing, right? So what if you don't know how it's going to work? So what if you don't know how it's going to turn out? Just fucking do it, right? Just fucking do it. See where it ends up. Do it, break it, try it again, fix it the second time. You'll get there in the end. My first character, this is in this current league, not the solo Stuffbound one I'm playing in here, but in Betrayal, the league that's currently going on right now, was a War Chief character. I didn't get over 30k damage. Like, I didn't get over 30k per totem. I was doing like 90k DPS. I thought it was fine. Right, well, it wasn't fine. It was so fucking slow that I went, okay, I'm gonna create a speed Deadeye. Because, you know, I heard Deadeyes were pretty good at being fast. So, I went, okay, let's make a fast Deadeye. And I can hopefully farm with that and then see what I get. So, my first character was a War Chief character, right? Fucking sucked balls. And then I make a Deadeye. I make my Caustic Arrow Deadeye, right? I speed farm, and I speed farm, and I speed farm. And, you know, character panned out pretty well, moved very fast. Those of you who've seen the build video, you know, it's a fucking speed demon. It's great. I love it. One of my favorite characters to date, actually. And then I had Facebreakers drop. And now, after my previous iteration of my fucking trashy Combs Heart Ancestral War Chief character that couldn't get over 90k DPS with 3 totems, I'm now looking at 4.2k, or sorry, 425k per totem, which, with quick math, is roughly a million DPS. Roughly a million, because I'm dropping 3 totems, right? Imagine I get Tukahama's Fortress in there, it's a 4th totem percent, you know, etc., right? You see where I'm going with this. Now that I got the Facebreakers, And I got, you know, Meganords and Fist to attacks gear and all this sort of shit. And I decided to go Berserker. I looked into it a little more. I thought a little more. And I pieced something together from the ground up. We made something very, very incredible. All because I had Facebreakers drop. I was able to make the character the first time, fucking brick it completely, and, you know, get to the point where I didn't even want to play it because it was so slow. And then decided, fuck it. I'll just stop, play something different. I know what I need to improve on now. I looked into things. I realized Berserker is better than the Chieftain that I went with. And then I came back a second time with a vengeance, with better gear, and I went whole hog. And this character is actually a lot of fun. You're going to be seeing a build video on this character relatively soon, probably within the next week or so, because, I mean, it's the 17th. I have till March 8th. I'm in red maps with it right now, clearing without any struggle whatsoever. And I just want to see if I can get the Shaper in, like, fucking the 15 days I have. Probably can't, but if I can do a month the Shaper or whatever with Facebreakers because it dropped for me when my first character was War Chief that I bricked, kind of poetic in a way. But yeah, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode because we are 36 minutes deep, and I'm going to cut this and cut over to the next episode of 23, and we're going to see if we can finish off this act. But yeah, that is going to be all for me. Hope you guys learned something. I kind of need to remember everything that I said this episode to formulate a decent title for this one. That's what I'm kind of trying to do right now. I hope you guys learned something, and got a little bit of motivation to try some interesting shit in Path of Exile. It's a very in-depth game, as I'm sure you guys know. It's half the reason you're here, if I'm honest. But its in-depthness gives it infinite replayability. That's going to be all for me, and I shall see you in the next one. Take care, gentlemen.